For over 100 years, the military rifle, or battle rifle, was a bolt-action weapon. This technology in itself was revolutionary, replacing muzzle loaders for the hundreds of years before that. Up until the First World War, bolt-action rifles were still being used and automatic weapons were just beginning to be introduced to the war. By the Second World War, the lessons of the First taught that machine guns were the key to battlefield warfare of the 20th century. The German army thus built their squad around the machine gun. A vast majority of the squad's firepower was the automatic weapon. The concept being that that was where the kill force came from, in which case their infantrymen were little better than supporting fire and ammunition carrying mules, which is why the German army stuck with a tried and true reliable Kar 98 bolt-action rifle. The American story was quite a different one. With no concerted ground effort really in the First World War, their only experience of war was the War of Independence, their civil war, and their war against their own indigenous population. Much earlier on, they learned a similar lesson. When fighting the native indigenous population, they didn't have the benefit of the military behind them. It was one man, his horse, his dog, and whatever rifle he had with him. The lever action system won the West. It was still manual bolt action, but much faster than racking. The lever action weapon supplied a much higher rate of fire, and these are the lessons learned for hundreds of years before the Second World War. When the Great War did finally come around, the American military was ready. So despite the Kar 98's range and accuracy advantage, it just couldn't keep up with the rate of fire. In comparison to the Kar 98, of course the semi-auto weapon could not compete with the accuracy or range of a bolt action. But the 30-06 round was rather powerful. It was a lighter round, and although it had slightly less propellant force, the trajectory was still quite flat, making it a very accurate weapon at middle range. While the bolt-action system was faster than the mechanisms of yestercenturies, when it came to the close-up fighting of the trenches in the First World War and the bunker-to-bunker and city fighting in the Second, the ability to do a follow-up shot at close range bolt actions were just not enough. Hence the development of the so-called machine pistol or submachine gun. A fully automatic submachine gun is an automatic weapon in pistol caliber, controllable recoil but high firepower, perfect for the kind of city fighting that popped up during the Second World War, making it a soldier's best friend when clearing bunkers. The MP40 was a very simplistic device, made mostly of stamped steel, some machine parts, and a few later models with experimental polymers. The Third Reich was pumping these things out around the clock. Besides the Thompson's obvious usefulness at short range to hose down areas, it had one more advantage over the MP40. It had the good luck to be chambered in a slightly more powerful round, and its ability to be switched to semi-automatic meant that it actually stood a decent chance at aim shots at middle range, which gave the Thompson an edge in tactical maneuvers in some situations.
The SMG, as useful as it was a fully automatic pistol. Its firepower was limited, with limited stopping power of its pistol-sized caliber rounds. In war, however, as useful as they are, there's still simply no replacing the sheer might of a fully automatic rifle caliber weapon, with the sustained fire capability of delivering rifle rounds in large volume. Although machine guns come in great many varieties, generally speaking they're all large heavy machines, as they need to be capable of handling powerful rounds and long bouts of sustained fire, and of course the combined weight of the ammunition that needs to come with it, which is exactly why one of the most common things about them, especially in earlier years, is the requirement to be mounted on a bipod or tripod and crew served by two men to be able to handle the entire rig and monitor and use it while in war. Of course, in airsoft, in a pinch, you can actually get away with just one operator if you have no friends.
Which brings us on to the VIVA ARMS M1919. Pretty much everything here is steel. The tubular steel tripod, the blued steel shroud, outer barrel which is also steel. In fact, everything is steel with the exception of the receiver itself, which is actually CNC aluminium. Everything is industrial scale, badass and reinforced, right down to the catch itself. It shoots at about 400 FPS and its ammunition capacity is an entire ammo box, which is, well, enormous. By comparison, here is an 1911. Internally, this gun runs on an M14 gearbox. The battery housing is enormous. Right now we're using a 7.4 volt lithium polymer battery, but it could probably accommodate a small car battery, which is more than enough to run all of this ammo. This is actually the version 2 M1919 that we're selling. The original version shot a little bit weak for tastes, which is why in this version 2 they've tuned up the gearbox and now it's putting out 400 FPS rather consistently. The iron sights do flip up, though exactly how much function they serve is up to you. The trigger is a very basic old school almost paddle type. We're running on a 7.4 today for the tests. The magazine is electric winding. Box on the side, switch on. Then the winding button is the big red thing here. You press one and then the other. You have a show. The real kicking detail on this gorgeous weapon is the kicking detail. Right down to the adjusting dial, which really works, although it's not that functional in airsoft, but it works and it looks cool. The only thing we point out, of course, is on the real one, these would be rivets and not hex screws. But of course, this is airsoft, and even at short range, the fact that they even bother putting all of them in where they're supposed to be is just gorgeous. Right down to the welding on the tripod, and all the bolts where they're supposed to be, and the sliding locks, and the catches, and the springs, and the screws. It's just amazing attention to detail.
The First World War did many things, but it mainly demonstrated the effectiveness of artillery and sustained machine gun fire on large groups of infantry. It was learned very rapidly that machine guns mowing down lines of men, as effective as it was, could be optimized by changing the position of the machine gun. Rather than firing directly at a straight line, if the machine gun was in a flanking position to one side, the relative angle against a line of men is much tighter, bringing the distances between the targets smaller, meaning it's much more rapidly effective to take down a line of men. And now we shoot up Mountain Dew cans in slow motion because it's cool.
The real steel M1919 was available in a variety of rates of fire across the years as it was tweaked for various purposes. However, this is airsoft and this M1919 is an AEG. So, we're about to demonstrate briefly what its 400 FPS gearbox does on a variety of batteries. To keep it nice and simple, we'll just use the two. Our first battery, the one that's in it right now, is a 7.4 volt LiPo. This performs about the same as a 9.6 NiCad, to give you some idea of what 400 FPS sounds like on this gun. This is what it sounds like on 11.1 volt LiPo battery with 400 FPS. 400 FPS. That's a very decent rate of fire and about on par with the higher rate of fires towards the middle of the development of the M1919, but not quite the anti-aircraft gun it was in later years. The VIVA ARMS M1919. Wow. I've been Arclight. This has been a Redwolf TV World War II special. For these incredibly gorgeous products and much more, go to our website at www.redwolfairsoft.com.